Have you ever looked into the bathroom mirror in the quiet stillness of the early morning and wondered when exactly the person staring back at you started to look so much like a stranger? As a physician who has spent over 30 years walking the sterile corridors of hospitals and the intimate spaces of private clinics, I have sat across from more than 30,000 souls, each carrying their own unique tapestry of pain, hope, and history. I am Dr. Sanjay Gupta, and at 50 years old, I have reached a vantage point in my career where I no longer just see symptoms. I see the profound, quiet desperation of the human spirit trying to hold on to its essence. In the flickering fluorescent lights of my examination rooms, I have witnessed a recurring, heartbreaking confession that transcends wealth or status. It is not the fear of death itself that keeps my patients awake at 2 o'clock in the morning. Rather, it is the terrifying, creeping shadow of losing the self, the fading of a sharp mind, the weakening of a once reliable frame, and the slow erosion of the independence that defines a dignified life. For decades, the medical establishment, of which I am a part, offered you a map that was fundamentally flawed. We stood at our podiums and sat behind our mahogany desks, sternly telling you to fear the very elements of nature that were designed to sustain you. We turned the dining table into a minefield of anxiety, especially regarding the humble egg, casting it as a villainous source of heart-stopping cholesterol. But today, I am stepping out from behind the white coat to speak to you as a friend, a son, and a seeker of truth. I want to invite you into the warmth of my own kitchen, away from the cold instruments of the clinic to clear the suffocating fog that has surrounded one of the most misunderstood foods in American history. We are not merely discussing a simple breakfast staple. We are embarking on a cinematic journey into a biological miracle meticulously wrapped in a calcium shell. This story is one of resurrection, fueled by rigorous data from the hallowed halls of Harvard and the longevity secrets of the East, brought home to your very own kitchen counter. I remember the silence in the room when I first began to challenge the outdated myths, realizing that by telling seniors to avoid eggs, we were inadvertently starving their brains of vital nutrients and letting their muscles wither away into frailty. It felt like a betrayal of the Hippocratic oath to remain silent while my patients suffered from preventable decline. Through the stories of 5 remarkable individuals I have treated, people like Martha, Artie, Eleanor, Henry, and Frank, we will see the dramatic before and after transformations that occur when we stop treating food as an enemy and start embracing it as the ultimate medicine. These are not just clinical case studies. They are sagas of grandmothers regaining the strength to lift their grandchildren and musicians finding the lost chords in the labyrinth of their memories. The statistics from recent clinical research are staggering and undeniable. Modern longitudinal studies now indicate that the nutrients found within a single egg, high-quality protein, choline, lutein, and essential B vitamins act as a chemical symphony for the aging body, yet nearly 90% of American seniors are critically deficient in these areas. We are talking about a food that is affordable, accessible, and sitting right there in your refrigerator, waiting to become your most loyal ally. It is time for us to stop merely surviving the passing years and start thriving with a vitality that defies the calendar. We must bridge the gap between complex laboratory science and the simple act of cracking an egg into a pan with intention and love. This is your invitation to reclaim the narrative of your aging process, to move from a place of living death back into the vibrant light of a functional, joyful life. Let us set aside the shadows of misinformation and step together into a new era of geriatric health, where the truth is as clear and nourishing as the golden yolk of a farm-fresh egg. It is time to listen to the wisdom of the body and the evidence of the heart. It is time, at long last, to crack open the truth. In the misty, rain-slicked streets of Portland, Oregon, there lived a woman named Martha Miller. At 78 years old, Martha was a retired librarian who had spent her life surrounded by the weight of great literature, but now her own body felt like an increasingly heavy burden she could no longer carry. I remember the day she walked into my clinic. She gripped my hand with a desperation that felt like a plea for life itself. Her voice was a fragile whisper as she recounted her 3rd fall of the year, a terrifying moment in her kitchen where her knees simply buckled, leaving her bruised on the cold linoleum. "Dr. Gupta," she said,
her eyes glistening with unshed tears. I feel like I am slowly disappearing. I look at my arms and I see skin hanging on bone. I'm terrified that the next fall will be the one that sends me to a nursing home and I'll never see my garden again.
As I sat there looking at Martha, I didn't see just a patient. I saw the silent epidemic that plagues millions of American seniors. I explained to her that she was suffering from sarcopenia, the progressive loss of skeletal muscle mass and strength. After the age of 60, our bodies begin to shed muscle at a rate of 1% every single year, a relentless thievery that leads to frailty and a loss of autonomy. For Martha, the gold standard medical advice of the past had failed her. She had been told to eat light to avoid fats, and she was inadvertently starving her muscles of the very amino acids they needed to repair. I told her that I wasn't going to give her a new prescription drug with a long list of side effects. Instead, I pointed to the most digestible, complete protein source on the planet, the humble egg.
Each large egg contains 6 to 7 grams of high-quality protein, providing all 9 essential amino acids that the human body cannot manufacture on its own. I explained to Martha that clinical research from the National Institute on Aging has shown that seniors who maintain a higher protein intake experience significantly fewer falls, better balance, and a remarkably faster recovery from illness or surgery. Unlike red meat, which can be tough on an aging digestive system and high in saturated fats, the egg is a gentle powerhouse. I started Martha on a simple regimen: 2 eggs every morning, poached or soft-boiled to preserve the integrity of the nutrients. We talked about the biological anabolic window, the need to feed the muscles shortly after waking to stop the breakdown that occurs overnight. 6 months later, the Martha who walked into my office was a different woman. Her gait was steady, the tremors in her hands had subsided, and when she gripped my hand this time, there was a firm, resonant strength that wasn't there before. She had gained nearly 4 pounds of lean muscle mass, a feat that many doctors would have thought impossible at 78. She told me with a radiant smile that she had spent the previous weekend pruning her rose bushes without needing to sit down once. This wasn't a miracle of modern chemistry. It was the miracle of biological refueling. By providing her body with the foundational blocks of protein, she hadn't just saved her muscles, she had saved her independence. Martha was no longer disappearing. She was coming back into focus, one breakfast at a time. It is a profound reminder that we are never too old to rebuild, provided we give our bodies the correct tools to do the heavy lifting. The humid air of New Orleans usually carries the vibrant sounds of brass and piano, but for Artie Sterling, the music had fallen tragically silent. At 82, Artie was a legendary jazz musician who had played in the smokiest clubs of the French Quarter, but when he sat in my office, he looked like a man lost in a thick, gray fog. He stared at his calloused fingers, the very tools that had once danced across ivory keys, and his voice cracked with a grief that broke my heart. "The melodies are in there somewhere, Doc," he whispered, tapping his temple, "but the wires are frayed. I sit down to play Summertime, and halfway through, I can't remember the next chord. I feel like my soul is being erased." I recognized Artie's struggle immediately. It was the cognitive, mental fog that many dismiss as normal aging, but which often signals a deep nutritional crisis in the brain. I leaned in and spoke to him about a nutrient most people have never heard of: choline. This vital compound is the precursor to acetylcholine, the brain's primary neurotransmitter responsible for memory, learning, and attention. I told him that an astounding 90% of Americans do not meet the daily requirement for choline. And for seniors, this deficiency can lead to brain shrinkage and a heightened risk of dementia. Just one single egg provides nearly 150 milligrams of choline, covering about 30% of the daily need for an adult. I shared with Artie a landmark study from Boston University that followed adults for over a decade, discovering that those with higher choline intake performed significantly better on memory tests and showed less evidence of the structural brain changes associated with Alzheimer's. For a musician, your brain is your sheet music. Without choline, the notes begin to smudge and fade. I didn't want Artie to take another pill. I wanted him to nourish his neurons. I recommended he start his day with 2 eggs, explaining that the choline in the yolk would help repair his nerve tissues and reduce the chronic inflammation that was clouding his thoughts. We discussed how this brain food works at a cellular level, stabilizing the membranes of his brain cells so they could communicate with the speed of a bebop solo once again.
Artie was skeptical at first, but his love for the music was stronger than his doubt. 3 months into this new dietary rhythm, I received a voicemail that I will never forget. It was the sound of a piano, clear, confident, and swinging. Then Artie's voice came on, laughing like a young man. "Doc, I found the chords. I'm back in the groove." When he came for his follow-up, his eyes were bright and his processing speed had improved by 20% on his cognitive evaluations. He described it as if a window had been cleaned, allowing the light to finally reach the dusty corners of his mind. This is the power of targeted nutrition. We didn't just improve his memory scores, we restored the symphony of his life. Artie was no longer a spectator in his own mind. He was the conductor once again, proving that a nourished brain is a creative brain, no matter the age. Savannah, Georgia, is a city defined by its visual poetry, the hanging Spanish moss, the cobblestone squares, and the golden light of sunset. But for Eleanor Davis, a 75-year-old retired kindergarten teacher, the world was slowly dissolving into a blur of shadows. Eleanor suffered from age-related macular degeneration, a condition that was stealing her ability to see the vibrant colors of the flowers she loved and, most painfully, the facial expressions of her young grandchildren. I remember her sitting in the exam chair, her shoulders slumped in defeat. "I can hear them laughing, Dr. Gupta," she said, her voice heavy with sorrow. "But I can't see the light in their eyes anymore. I feel like I'm being locked in a dark room while life goes on outside." The tragedy of vision loss in seniors is that it often leads to a profound sense of isolation and depression. I explained to Eleanor that her eyes were under constant attack from oxidative stress and harmful blue light, and that her body's natural defense system was running on empty. I told her about two specific antioxidants, lutein and zeaxanthin. These are carotenoids that act like internal sunglasses, concentrating in the macula, the part of the eye responsible for sharp central vision. While many doctors suggest eating bowls of kale, I told Eleanor that the lutein found in egg yolks is actually much more bioavailable. Because the yolk contains natural fats, the body can absorb these eye-protecting nutrients up to 3 times more efficiently than from leafy greens alone. I pointed to clinical research from the Journal of Nutrition, which demonstrated that seniors who consumed just 2 eggs per day for 5 weeks saw a significant increase in their blood levels of lutein and zeaxanthin without negatively impacting their cholesterol. This was the golden shield Eleanor needed. I encouraged her to pair her eggs with colorful bell peppers, rich in vitamin C, to create a synergy that would support the collagen in her ocular tissues. We talked about how these nutrients work to filter out the high-energy light that damages the retina, essentially acting as a biological filter. Eleanor was a teacher at heart. She understood the lesson and began to apply it with the same discipline she once taught her students. The transformation wasn't instantaneous, but over the course of a year, the progression of her macular degeneration slowed to a crawl. During a follow-up visit, she pulled out a photograph she had taken of her garden. "The reds are redder, doctor," she told me with a glimmer of hope I hadn't seen before. "And yesterday, I saw my grandson's dimple when he smiled at me." She wasn't just seeing images. She was reclaiming the emotional connections that sight provides. Eleanor's story is a testament to the fact that our diet can be a form of preventative medicine that protects our most precious senses. By choosing the right fuel, she was able to keep the sunset of her life bright and colorful, refusing to let the shadows win. We often take our sight for granted until it begins to flicker, but for Eleanor, the humble egg was the candle that kept the dark at bay. In the biting, relentless winters of Buffalo, New York, the sun often disappears for weeks at a time, leaving the world a monotonous shade of gray. For Henry Beaumont, an 84-year-old former construction foreman, the cold didn't just settle in his joints, it settled in his soul. Henry came to me feeling fragile, a word he hated, having spent his life building skyscrapers. He was suffering from chronic bone pain, a weakened immune system that led to one respiratory infection after another, and a heavy, persistent depression. "I feel like an old house with no insulation, Doc," he told me, his large, weathered hands trembling slightly. "I'm cold on the inside, and I don't have the strength to fight off even a simple sniffle anymore." Henry's blood work told a story I see all too often in the North, a profound deficiency in vitamin D, the sunshine vitamin. For seniors, especially those who stay indoors during the harsh winters, vitamin D levels plummet, leading to brittle bones, muscle weakness, and a dampened mood. While most people think of sunlight or supplements, I directed Henry toward a natural, whole food source that many overlook. Eggs, particularly those from pasture-raised hens or those fed a vitamin D-enriched diet, can provide a critical boost to our daily needs.
I explained to Henry that vitamin D isn't just a vitamin, it's a prohormone that regulates over 2,000 genes in the body, including those responsible for our immune response and the production of feel-good neurotransmitters like serotonin. I shared with him insights from clinical immunology showing that adequate vitamin D and protein intake are essential for preventing immunosenescence, the natural aging of the immune system. Without these nutrients, Henry's body couldn't produce the white blood cells and antibodies needed to defend against the flu or pneumonia. I recommended he switch to omega-3 enriched eggs, which provide anti-inflammatory benefits along with vitamin D and B12. Vitamin B12 is crucial for nerve protection. Its deficiency can often mimic the symptoms of dementia or cause the tingling Henry felt in his feet. We redesigned his breakfast to be a fortress of health, eggs scrambled with mushrooms, which also contain small amounts of vitamin D, creating a potent synergy. Slowly, the insulation began to return to Henry's life. The bone pain that had made every step a chore began to recede, and more importantly, his mood began to lift. He told me that for the first time in years, he felt a sense of sturdiness returning to his frame. He didn't catch a single cold that entire winter, a feat that felt like a major victory for a man his age. Henry realized that he didn't have to be a victim of the weather or his age. He could cultivate his own internal sunshine. By nourishing his body with the foundational elements of vitamin D, B vitamins, and selenium, he had rebuilt his immune system's walls. Henry Beaumont was no longer waiting for the spring. He had found a way to carry the warmth of the sun within him, protected by a golden shield he found in his own kitchen. Frank Rossi was a man who didn't scare easily. As a retired New York City firefighter, he had run into burning buildings while others ran out. But when he sat in my office in Brooklyn, he looked at a picture of an egg as if it were a loaded weapon. At 72, Frank had high cholesterol and type 2 diabetes, and for 20 years he had been told by every health magazine and well-meaning relative that eggs were heart stoppers. "You're telling me to eat eggs, Doc?" he barked, his voice full of the skepticism that defines a true New Yorker. "My arteries are already clogged enough. I don't want to end up on an operating table because I wanted an omelet."
I understood Frank's fear. It was born from decades of outdated medical dogma that failed to distinguish between dietary cholesterol and blood cholesterol. I sat him down and gave him the straight talk he respected. I explained that for the vast majority of people, the cholesterol we eat has a very minimal impact on the LDL levels in our blood. Our liver is a master regulator. When we eat more cholesterol from food, the liver simply produces less to maintain an elegant equilibrium. I pointed him toward a massive meta-analysis published in the British Medical Journal involving over 3 million participants, which found no clear link between moderate egg consumption and heart disease or stroke in the general population.
The real culprits in Frank's diet weren't the eggs, they were the refined carbohydrates and the processed meats he paired them with, the white rolls, the sugary ketchups, and the greasy sausages. I told him that for a senior with diabetes, the goal is heart-smart moderation. We aimed for 3 to 4 whole eggs a week, but I taught him how to bulk up his meals with egg whites, which are pure cholesterol-free protein. I showed him how to use olive oil instead of butter, explaining that monounsaturated fats actually improve the health of the blood vessel lining. We talked about how the omega-3s in certain eggs could actually lower his triglycerides and reduce the chronic inflammation that fuels heart disease. Frank was a man of action, so he took the challenge. He swapped his morning bagel and bacon for a veggie-heavy omelet and avocado. 6 months later, his blood work came back with a surprise. His bad LDL cholesterol hadn't moved an inch, but his good HDL had actually increased, and his blood sugar markers were more stable than they had been in a decade. He looked at me with a smirk and said, "I guess the old fire dog can learn new tricks after all." Frank had reclaimed the joy of eating without the shadow of fear hanging over his plate. He realized that the egg wasn't the enemy. It was a powerful tool for metabolic health when used with wisdom. By focusing on the whole plate rather than just one ingredient, Frank had found a way to protect his heart while finally enjoying his breakfast again. In my 3 decades as a physician, I have learned that medicine isn't just found in a vial. It is often found in the way we handle our fire. I often tell my patients that a healthy ingredient can be rendered toxic by a careless cook. For seniors whose bodies are increasingly sensitive to inflammation, the method of preparation is just as important as the food itself. I see it all the time. A patient buys the best pasture-raised eggs, but then proceeds to fry them in rancid butter at a high heat until the edges are brown and curled. This high-heat cooking causes a process called lipid peroxidation, creating oxidized cholesterol that is far more likely to contribute to arterial plaque than the egg itself ever would. I teach my patients the art of the gentle flame. We want to preserve the delicate choline,
the heat-sensitive B vitamins, and the precious lutein. I encourage methods like poaching, where the egg is swirled in a gentle bath of simmering water, or soft boiling, which keeps the yolk, the nutritional heart, liquid and intact. If they prefer a scramble, I insist they use a low heat and a touch of extra virgin olive oil. Olive oil is rich in polyphenols that act as a buffer against inflammation, creating a synergy with the egg's nutrients. I often share a study from Nutrition and Metabolism that highlights how oxidized fats can trigger a cascade of inflammation in the cardiovascular system, something every person over 65 must avoid at all costs. I remember talking to a patient who loved his eggs well done. I explained that the dark green ring sometimes seen around an overcooked yolk is a sign that the sulfur and iron have reacted, making the egg harder to digest and slightly less nutritious. Instead, I taught him to make egg muffin cups in the oven at a moderate temperature, packed with spinach, onions, and tomatoes. This method allows for slow, even cooking and provides a memory boost combo when we add a pinch of turmeric and black pepper. Turmeric's curcumin is a potent anti-inflammatory, and the fat in the egg increases its absorption by over 2,000%. This isn't just cooking, it's culinary alchemy designed for the aging body. By changing how they cook, my patients find that their digestion improves and the heavy feeling after a meal disappears. We talk about the importance of pairing eggs with fiber-rich whole grains or a side of berries to slow the absorption of fats and keep blood sugar stable. I want them to see their stove not as a place of chores, but as a laboratory for their own vitality. When you cook with a gentle flame, you are showing respect for the nutrients that are meant to keep your heart beating and your mind sharp. It is about slowing down, being mindful, and choosing a path of clean energy. An egg prepared with care is more than just a meal. It is a daily ritual of self-preservation, a way to ensure that the fuel you put into your body is working for you, not against you. One of the most frequent questions I hear in my clinic is, Dr. Gupta, what is the magic number? People want a clear black and white rule, but as a doctor who has treated 30,000 individuals, I know that health is a spectrum, not a fixed point. I tell my patients that the golden ratio of egg consumption depends entirely on the unique symphony of their own biology. For a healthy senior with stable cholesterol and no history of heart disease, the science is clear. One whole egg a day is not only safe, but highly beneficial for maintaining muscle and brain health. This is backed by decades of research from the Harvard School of Public Health, which found that a daily egg provides a nutritional insurance policy against many age-related declines. However, for those navigating the complexities of type 2 diabetes or existing cardiovascular issues, we must be more surgical in our approach. In these cases, I often recommend a target of 3 to 4 whole eggs per week. But here is the secret I share with my patients. You don't have to stop there. You can supplement your meals with pure egg whites. The egg white is a biological marvel. It is pure, high-quality protein, completely free of fat and cholesterol. By mixing one whole egg with 2 or 3 whites, you get all the choline and vitamins from the yolk while drastically increasing the protein content needed for muscle repair without overtaxing your lipid profile. I recall a patient who was terrified of his protein shakes but was losing weight too fast. I taught him the yolk-to-white ratio, and he was able to maintain his strength without raising his LDL levels. We also discussed the importance of the whole plate context. If you are eating an egg alongside a mountain of refined white toast and sugary jam, the egg's benefits are buried under a metabolic avalanche. But if that same egg sits next to a pile of sautéed kale and a few slices of avocado, you are creating a heart-healthy, nutrient-dense powerhouse. I always advocate for omega-3 enriched eggs for my heart-conscious patients, as the flaxseed-fed hens produce eggs that help lower triglycerides and improve blood vessel elasticity. It is about finding your own personal rhythm. I encourage my patients to track how they feel, their energy levels, their cognitive clarity, and their muscle recovery. Nutrition is a conversation between you and your body, and the egg is a versatile tool that can be adjusted to fit your needs. There is no one-size-fits-all in geriatric medicine. We use the data as a guide, but we use your personal health profile as the ultimate map. By understanding the golden ratio, you move from a place of confusion to a place of empowerment. You are no longer guessing. You are prescribing yourself a daily dose of vitality, tailored to keep your heart strong and your spirit vibrant for the long haul. In the quiet moments of my practice, I often reflect on how the smallest details in a kitchen can have the largest impact on a patient's health. For a senior, food safety is not a suggestion. It is a critical line of defense. As we age, our stomach acid decreases and our immune systems become less robust, making us far more vulnerable to foodborne illnesses like salmonella. I tell my patients that their pantry and refrigerator are the pharmacy of their home, and they must be managed with the same precision. The first rule I hammer home is simple: never leave your eggs on the counter. In the United States, eggs are washed before sale, which removes the natural protective bloom, leaving the porous shell exposed to bacteria if not kept at a constant cold temperature. I often see patients making the mistake of storing eggs in the built-in rack on the refrigerator door. I explain to them that the door is the warmest part of the fridge and subject to constant temperature swings every time it's opened. For maximum longevity and nutrient preservation, eggs should be kept in their original carton in the back of the middle or lower shelf. The carton isn't just for organization. It prevents the eggs from absorbing the strong odors of other foods and protects delicate vitamins like riboflavin and vitamin D from light exposure. We talk about the float test as a bit of kitchen wisdom. A fresh egg will lay flat on the bottom of a bowl of water, while an older egg will begin to tilt or float as the air cell inside expands. I always caution my older patients, if a shell is cracked or dirty, do not risk it. It is simply not worth the potential for a severe gastrointestinal infection that could lead to dehydration, a major cause of hospitalization for those over 80. For my patients who live alone and might struggle to use a full dozen, I suggest buying smaller cartons or even using pasteurized liquid egg whites, which are a safe and convenient way to add protein to soups or smoothies. We also discuss the importance of cooking eggs until the whites are completely set and the yolks are thickened, as this further reduces the risk of illness while still allowing for a soft texture that is easy to chew. Managing your kitchen with this level of care is an act of self-respect. It ensures that every calorie you consume is a clean calorie, dedicated to your recovery and strength. I tell them to treat their eggs like the precious cargo they are. Vessels of life that require a cold, stable environment to thrive. When you take the time to store and handle your food properly, you are taking an active role in your own preventative care. It is a small habit that pays massive dividends in avoiding unnecessary illness and maintaining the peak nutritional value of your food. Your kitchen is the foundation of your health, and a safe pantry is the first step toward a long and vibrant life. As I sit here reflecting on the 30,000 faces I have seen over the last 3 decades, I am struck by a singular truth. Aging is not a process of inevitable decay, but a journey of constant adaptation. We have walked through the stories of Martha, Artie, Eleanor, Henry, and Frank, 5 souls who were once flickering in the wind, but found their flame again through the simple, profound act of nourishing their bodies. We have debunked the shadows of the cholesterol myth and replaced fear with the light of modern clinical evidence. From the halls of Harvard to the kitchens of New Orleans and Brooklyn, the evidence is overwhelming. The humble egg is not just a food, it is a compact, affordable, and potent vessel of resurrection for the aging human frame. My dear friends, if you are over 65, I want you to hear this clearly. You are not fading away. You are simply in a season that requires a different kind of fuel. You have the power to protect your memories with Choline, to shield your vision with lutein, to fortify your bones with vitamin D, and to rebuild your muscles with the highest quality protein available to man. You don't need a cabinet full of expensive synthetic supplements when nature has already provided a perfect whole food multivitamin in a shell. My advice to you is simple and urgent. Starting tomorrow, make the egg a conscious part of your weekly rhythm. Listen to your body, respect the golden ratio that fits your health profile, and embrace the gentle flame in your cooking. Do not wait for a fall to start thinking about your muscles. Do not wait for the fog to thicken before you feed your brain. The time to act is now, in the very next meal you prepare. Take back control of your health, one smart choice at a time. If this journey we have shared today has given you even a single spark of hope or a new piece of clarity, I ask you to join our community. Please hit the subscribe button and share this story with a friend or a loved one who might be struggling in the shadows of misinformation. Together, we can change the narrative of aging from one of loss to one of vibrant, renewed life. You deserve to feel strong, you deserve to stay sharp, and you deserve to look into that bathroom mirror and recognize the person staring back, a person of wisdom, strength, and enduring vitality. Thank you for allowing me into your life and your kitchen. I am Dr. Sanjay Gupta, and I believe in your ability to heal, to grow, and to thrive. Let us continue this journey together, one meal, one story, and one life-changing truth at a time. I will see you in the next chapter of our healing journey. Until then, stay well, eat with intention, and remember that it is never too late to begin again.